Sonic Center over the weekend for 16 draft prospects. All right, Brandon, what was your biggest takeaway from your scouting combine?
Wow, couple, this kid right here, 4.24 40, unbelievable. We thought he was going to break the record, but he didn't hold his second run for 3 seconds to start. So Eric Stokes, cornerback from Georgia, was a big takeaway. Brandon Smith, 44-inch vertical, 11-foot broad jump, super explosive. And this kid, Amari Rogers, wide receiver for Clemson, Trevor Lawrence's #1 guy. This dude was sensational running routes. And then the last guy is Carey. Carey, LSU defensive back, ran a 4.30. A lot of these guys made money. For me, it was everything to give these guys an opportunity, because if that was snatched away from me in 2006, I don't know what I would have done. So great job to all the guys that came out, participated, and made money.
That's awesome.
It was awesome.
Really
The
well
other
done,
big
That's great.
sort of newsworthy thing here, Nick, you know, if Deshaun goes to the Jets, we heard that Brandon's coming out of retirement. Excuse me, Brandon, how do you feel out there? How was the route? How should Deshaun feel about his new wide receiver?
All right, so Wiles, I ran a hitch, I ran a slant, I ran a curl route, and I ran a go. And that was, what, last Friday or so? We did this for the pre-record, and my body is still sore. Yes, Jenna, my body is sore.
I don't believe it for one. It is the biggest lie on television that your route running is making you sore. It's the biggest lie on television.
Jenna,
I
I know we got to be quick, but if people watch the beginning of this route, Brandon takes an extra step on that stutter. It's supposed to be your go on 6. He went on 7. So it's just, I mean, he's just got to clean some things up there.
Brandon,
he just got left foot. He's got to clean some
loser.
things up.
Come on. All right, you're in such great shape, buddy. Let's head to one of Brandon's former homes, Chicago, where a report has the Bears prioritizing a run at Russell Wilson. And why not? They need a franchise quarterback. Russ is a franchise quarterback. According to my 20-second script here, it all fits perfectly. Former All-Pro running back Brian Westbrook with us now. Brian, would the Bears be instant Super Bowl contenders with Russ?
Good morning, Jenna. And I'd be a little bit instant Super Bowl contenders if you had Russell Wilson. They go from an 8-win team to a 10 or 11-win football team. But there's a couple of things that have to happen in order for that to work. You have to be able to keep Khalil Mack. You can't send Khalil Mack away in the trade. You have to be able to retain Akeem Hicks as well as resign Allen Robinson. If you're able to do that, now that defense is able to get back to that defense they were in 2018 under Vic Fangio, where they were the #1 defense in the league. They were getting after guys as far as takeaway sacks and points as well. That's the type of defense that you need on this football team. But offensively, what Russell Wilson adds for Matt Nagy is it allows Matt Nagy to have some confidence in his signal caller, the guy that's going to have the ball much of the game. It also allows Matt Nagy to be creative, use some shifts and motions and misdirections in his play calls and his schemes. And that's going to put defenses on their heels. So if you're talking about one of the best defenses in the league, an offense that can keep defenses on his heels because of the addition of Russell Wilson, then you're certainly talking about a Super Bowl contender in Chicago.
Yeah, absolutely. This was a team that was in quarterback hell last year. Here, Mitch Trubisky, you take the ball. Here, Nick Foles, you take the ball. Here, Mitch, we're going to give you back the ball. So, yeah, when you look at that defense, I know they finished, around 14-15, but at the end of the day, I'm going to be honest with you, you could have gotten more out of them. That defense was sitting on the sideline seeing Mitch Trubisky take the field. They were like, you know what, we don't have a chance. And you didn't see them play up to their ability. When Mitch Trubisky at the end of the season start playing lights out for probably around like 2 games, you saw more out of that defense. So absolutely, he makes them a contender. But what they're going to have to do is they're going to have to shore up that offensive line. They're one of the worst offensive lines in football, and that's one of the reasons why he want to leave Seattle. But they have what they need to go get it done. It doesn't take a lot. You need to have a smart offensive coordinator. You need to have a smart guy who can come in and say, all right, this is how we're going to protect Russ. And then the other thing is they need a Tyler Lockett. So, yes, he loves DK Metcalf, but what really makes Russell Wilson go is that short, small, super fast wide receiver that he can take shots. with. That's who Russell Wilson is. That's how he likes to play in the passing game. So if you shore up that offensive line and you go get a Tyler Lockett-type wide receiver, you're going to have an opportunity to compete. Because there's some players, Nick, that wins 5 or 6 games themselves, and Russell Wilson is one of them.
Exactly right. And so, of course, they would be Super Bowl contenders if they added Russell Wilson. And people have said to me, Nick, you never compliment coaches. You're always crushing coaches, whether it's Luke Walton or Cliff Kingsbury, just drive-bys on these guys. Let me compliment a coach. Matt Nagy might be excellent. I know he's at the very least good. How can I prove it to you? Show this graphic that I think will shock the audience. Matt Nagy's been the head coach there 3 years. Most consecutive seasons with 8 wins in a row. Well, the Steelers, that's Tomlin with Cowher a little bit there, and Big Ben. There's Russ and Pete Carroll. There's Andy Reid and the Chiefs. There's the Titans. That's a surprising one. Oh, the Ravens are on there. That makes sense. You have John Harbaugh. The Saints have had Sean Payton and Drew Brees. The Rams, that's since young genius Sean McVay's there. And then it's the Bears with Mitch Trubisky playing quarterback for the full 3 years. They've been 8-8, 8-8, 12-4. Matt Nagy's 28-20 with a terrible quarterbacking situation. So, of course, if you add a top 4 quarterback in the league, you become Super Bowl contenders. The problem for the Bears is this. They don't have a quarterback to trade Seattle, and they don't have a premier pick to trade Seattle because I know people have memory hold this, but the Bears made the playoffs last year. They were in there. Remember, they lost to the Saints. So, Wildes, I think the trade would have to be something like this. 3 first-round picks plus Roquan Smith and Kyle Fuller. I think you have to give 2 of your best defensive players and 3 first-round picks because you're not going to be able to provide them with a quarterback. If you would do that, I think Seattle would listen, and I think Chicago, even bereft of those assets, would be instant Super Bowl contenders because of the defense, the coach, and most notably Russ.
So here's the odd part about trading first-round picks. And, Brian, I want to throw it to you. If Russ is constantly wanting to have more of a say in personnel decisions, how do you balance that with the fact that in order for Russ to go to a team, they're going to have to give up a king's ransom? So then fast forward when Russ is on the team, it's like, we need to get better at position X, Y, and Z. I need more protection. Why don't we draft an offensive lineman to protect me? Like, well, remember, to even get you here, we had to give up all these picks. So how do you think Russ balances that when he is making decisions? Because to me, like, all of these picks, he's like, you're giving up all these picks. I got DK Metcalf here. I'm actually better standing in Seattle.
Well, yeah, so what Russ is going to have to do, he's going to have to carry a little bit more of the load there in Chicago than he had to do in Seattle. They had a great run game in Seattle when they got that going, and they had 2 receivers on the outside that were just dominant when you talk about Lockett and DK Metcalf. So he's going to have to carry a little bit more of that load. But, yeah, you're going to be trading away some draft picks, probably first-rounders. That means you got to hit in the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th round. There's some great players in those rounds. Some of those guys that were at Brandon's combine deal there this weekend, they're going to be drafted in those rounds, and those guys are going to have to come in and contribute early. That's what Russell Wilson has to be thinking about. We're getting a much better defense, a much more creative offense, the ability to do a lot of different things offensively that they just weren't willing to do there in Seattle. And now we got to make the most of some of these young guys coming in, and we're going to have to draft well. I think this is a great challenge for Russell Wilson, but one that he's certainly willing to accept, because the creativity offensively is going to be much different than what they had there in Seattle.
Yeah. Or B, Russell Wilson can do what James Harden did. What James Harden did, and I talked to one of his advisors a couple of months ago, he went to the team and said, look, if you trade for me and Kyrie's in that deal, then it's a no deal. So Russell Wilson can actually put on that general manager hat and take that seat that he wants in Chicago, in Lake Forest right now, before he even gets there. And you say, look, here's what we can offer. And Khalil Mack is not one of them. So I think that's what he does, is he actually takes a page out of James Harden's book.
It's still such a foreign concept to me to think about Russ playing for another team next year. All right, while we wait for the next Russ report, next rumor, we'll shift back to hoops. Are the Brooklyn Nets, speaking of them, Brandon, are the Nets the clear-cut title favorites, adding Blake Griffin over the weekend? That's next. First things first.